This is the second weekend in May, and everything is growing well. All the deciduous trees have come into leaf, and I'm going to talk today about a species that is not often referred to or much used in bonsai, and that is the Zelkova Serrata, or Japanese grey bark elm. I know that a lot of the indoor Chinese elms are traded under the name of Zelkova, but that is the wrong name. As I've said to you in some of my other videos, that name was given to the Chinese elm, which is really Ulmus parviflora, to overcome some import difficulties. But the Chinese elm is an Ulmus, but not a Zelkova. The true Zelkova, or Japanese grey bark elm, is a tree that is used in Japan as a street tree and as a commercial timber tree. I'm showing you this picture of our garden because along the boundary, a lot of those tall trees there are Zelkova Serrata. When I came to the nursery, or purchased the nursery in 1985, the first thing I did when I came and occupied the place in 86 was to plant several Zelkovas. Not several, I purchased 500 Zelkova Serrata from a wholesale nursery, and I planted them all over the nursery. I'm going to just show you some of them. So these tall trees here, which are about 60 to 80 foot high, are the Japanese Zelkova, or Zelkova Serrata, that I planted in the ground in 1986. And not knowing how vigorous the trees are, I planted them quite close together, and they grow so fast that they become almost unmanageable. These logs here are Zelkova Serrata tree. Look at the thickness of that trunk. That is about, I would say, 2.5 foot in diameter. And I think you can freeze the picture and count the rings. I think there should be only like 30 to 40 rings there. And these trees were planted, as I said, in 1986 and were allowed to grow to become these huge trees. You see how straight the trunk is? And in Japan, they are used as a street or amenity tree, and they're also used for making furniture and houses. The straight trunks give it a lot of strength, and like all elms, the wood is very hard. So because they are hard, it is a favorite building material. The central column of most Japanese timber houses is Zelkova. This is another Zelkova. Look at that one. Absolutely massive. And this is only 34 years since planting. When I planted them, the trunks were no thicker than those branches there, no thicker than about ½ an inch thick. As I said, I purchased 500 of those trees. I planted about 50 trees along the perimeter here. So these are my Zelkova Serrata, and I will show you another area where I planted more Zelkova. The new leaves are a bronzy color, serrated at the edges, and as they mature, the leaves turn green, and that's a typical Zelkova leaf. And while I'm here, I will just place this little tree here. This is a seedling Zelkova. We grow thousands of these because we grow them as small bonsai. And this is, I would say, about 4 to 5 years old. We don't let them get big. We always keep them small because we use it for our shohin trees. So if they're kept small and grown in small pots, you can compare the size of the leaf. Look at that. That one leaf is bigger than the entire tree, and this is all Zelkova Serrata, exactly the same species. I'm now walking towards my main growing field because when I came to the nursery in 1986, I planted many trees to thicken up fast. I planted 1,000 pines, which many of them grew to about, again, 80 or more feet. I had to fell a lot of them because they became useless as bonsai, and they were shading everything and nothing could grow. That large clump, that's not one tree. There are maybe about 50 trees there, and they are the remainder of the Zelkova Serrata that I planted all those many years ago. And about, I would say, maybe 15 years ago, I had to take a lot of the trees out. There are only about 50 trees left here of Zelkova Serrata. I'll just take you here to show you how large these trees become. Bearing in mind that they've been planted only 34 years ago, they have become absolutely enormous. Absolutely enormous trees. This is what they are. Easily 80 feet tall. And look at the size of this one single tree. This is one single tree, multi-trunk. I keep lopping the branches off, but it keeps growing. And these are all the Zelkovas that are left. I think there are about 50 of them I kept. So they were all planted in rows, row upon row upon row, to grow to become thick. And being relatively impatient, although bonsai is about patience, I tried to grow them fast to get thick trunks. By the way, these are trident maples with thick trunks as well. So I planted many trees in the ground so that the trunks would get thick. But sometimes when you try to do things like that and you have too many plants to look after, you lose control of them. So what happened was, about 15 years ago, this entire area that you see here was just nothing but 300 Zelkovas planted in the ground, about 100 yards long and 6 foot apart each row, and each tree was about 2 feet apart, about 60 centimeters apart, and they were row upon row. So I had to pay someone to fell about 100 or 200 of them, and some were dug up with a digger, but those that couldn't be dug up, look at the stump of this. These are 2 trees that remained here. I cut it down to the ground thinking that it would die, but it wouldn't die. Look at it. All these suckers have grown again. So it continues to grow. I use this plant for air layering. You can see I use it for air layering. So this is not wasted. I still use it, but it just shows deciduous trees are almost impossible to kill. But I have planted other trees in its place, and sadly a lot of those big trees were not usable for bonsai. So when you plant things in the ground to thicken, you've got to take it up at the right time, or you will lose control of the tree. So this is a lesson, a hard lesson that I had to learn when you try to run a nursery from scratch. The Zelkova, or Japanese greybark elm, is quite similar to the ordinary elm, and also not dissimilar to the hornbeams. This is a European hornbeam, so this looks a bit like Zelkova. I'll show you another tree that has leaves that look like Zelkova, and that's the Korean hornbeam. And you see the leaves are something like the Zelkova, but the true Zelkova is that forest group there. Now that group is made into a large forest. It's not the ideal type of forest, but we have customers who like this sort of thing, so we plant a lot of these tall trees to make the forest. But the classic use of Zelkova Serrata, or Japanese greybark elm, is the broom style tree. I will show you a couple that we have, and I will show you how we deal with them. Now, as you know, I'm a sucker for large trees. Look at all these large oaks and the large conker trees. They're all 3 to 4 foot tall. But I will show you a Zelkova Serrata that I made from a batch of those 500 trees that I purchased back in 1986. This wasn't planted in the ground, but it was grown in flower pots and kept this size. So this tree is, that fence is 6 foot high. So this tree is just over 4 foot tall, and it's got this massive trunk. And what I did was I simply cut the top off. Let's show you the chop. In fact, that's hollowed out. And this is the nebari. The nebari at the base is about 15 inches. The trunk is about 6 to 8 inches in diameter further up the top. And I've just trained it into an informal style bonsai on the large size. And this is how you can make a large Zelkova bonsai. Now in this wheelbarrow here, I've just collected just a few examples of Zelkova which I'm going to work on and show you how we deal with them. So this is going to be the subject of this video. This is a broom style Zelkova Serrata that I've been training for many years, and in fact it used to be displayed as a forest with a few small trees at the base here, so you can disregard this little thing, but this tree is a broom style, and all these long shoots about 18 inches long are growth that has occurred since the last 3 weeks. So it is an exceedingly vigorous tree. If you do not keep on top of it, you will lose control completely. I will just show you how I go about tackling this tree. I'll just show you the detail. It's a lovely, lovely tree. Very difficult to make into broom style. I hate this variety because it's not as easy to handle as the Japanese maple. So here I am wearing my lovely Hawaiian shirt because it's getting quite warm, and pruning this is really quite simple. All you do is to deal with these shoots. You've got to deal with these long shoots at the right time, because if you don't deal with these shoots at the right time, they become very coarse and you will lose control completely. If I just bring the phone close and show you the detail and trace this long shoot back. Look at this shoot. This shoot, which is about 18 inches long, has grown in these last 3 weeks, and it came from this junction here. And you can see it is much thicker and coarser than all those other shoots. So you mustn't let these coarse, thick shoots grow, otherwise they will dominate the tree and you will lose control completely. One reason why the Zelkova Serrata is difficult to grow and not very popular is because it's very hard to keep control of it. And if you keep pruning it, and because it's so dense, the ramification causes a lot of dieback. So it is a difficult tree, but it is highly prized in Japan because they know it's difficult. So the Japanese always regard the Japanese broom style with Zelkova as one of the very essence, I would say, of fine bonsai. Only good growers are able to produce good broom style Zelkova. So I will now switch the camera around. So although I'm working on my own and no cameraman, so what I'm going to do is just take these long shoots off. You don't need this. Anything long. Can you imagine if you didn't deal with this? This tree would get completely out of shape within 2 or 3 months. So you've got to be on top of this tree all the time. And on a large nursery like ours, where we have thousands of trees and all in different stages of training, it is very difficult to keep an eye on everything. So this is one tree that you notice is growing in this basket with moss because I wanted to make it strong again. So it has become strong, and I can put it back in its bonsai pot virtually at any time. So again, all I do is go around. No great skill to this. It's like doing a barber's job. A haircut, trim all round, This is the first thing you should do. Just trim the shape, and then we will go into the structure of the tree and deal with any crossing branches that are left. So if we go right round, you see even on this side, that dome shape has gone missing, and we need to create that dome shape for a start. Although it's a dome shape, all these Zelkovas have a front and a back. So the front, I would say, is here. Of course, a lot of these trees that have good ramification or good twiggery, they are mostly shown in the winter time when they don't have leaves, and that's when you can see the structure of the tree. You can analyze all the faults. Anything that is growing inwards, I tend to take out. You know, this tree is growing this way, so we encourage the trees to grow that way, all the branches to grow that way. So anything growing inwards, I'm taking out. I don't want many of these suckering shoots along the trunk to grow. As I said, it's in the winter that you can see all the faults, so although there are faults in this tree, you cannot see the faults. Many of these branches are growing in the wrong direction. I'm going to take them out. Sometimes you have to sacrifice some of the ramification, because if you leave too much twiggery, then it would die anyway, because they don't get light. So these shoots on the inside will die in the course of time. So you might as well thin it out and don't let it die like that. If you go to Japan and study the street trees of Zelkova, they are in fact trained in this boom style. So this is how you would find a tree growing in the streets of Japan. I'll deal with this little one. I may take this out because this is now out of context. I used to have 3 little trees on the side. This is when I used to show this tree at the Chelsea Flower Show. This was one of my favorite exhibits. So there you are. This tree is not so nice from this side. See, that's a very long shoot, I just noticed. So I'll take that off. So this is how you would trim it. So if you have a tree like this, you literally have to keep at it every 2 or 3 weeks. Keep trimming it back so that it keeps the shape, keeps the ramification. So much for this one. Now let me move on to another one. We have lots of examples of trees. So this is another one. This is another Zelkova broom that is struggling. A lot of the branches are dying back, and this happens from time to time. You see, if you're not careful, there's a lot of dieback on these trees. And you see, this is where you get one dominant shoot. If that takes over, the rest of the tree will not get nourishment, and all the energy will go there and nothing will come here. So this is where you've got to keep control of the tree. So the first thing I do is to take out the dominant one. That's the dominant one. Take it out. All these long shoots we take out. If there are dead branches, you see there are dead branches there. Quite a few dead branches. No matter, because the trunk is the main thing. I can start all over again. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to put it in a basket of moss to do the usual Peter Chan's moss trick. And we will start styling the tree from scratch all over again. This I regard as the fun part. Nothing to worry about. Like all the elms, Zelkova is an elm, the wood is extremely hard. There's a funny crossing branch there, depending on which side I decide to use as the front. See, that one is crossing there. So I've made it much tighter now. You can see what I've done. It's still a bit heavy on this side. So we brought it back to this size, and I'm going to regrow the entire tree. Of course, what I now do is I will take it out of the pot, plant it in a basket of moss, and I hope to show it to you in the autumn to see what happens, because I bet you anything it will have grown to a very large extent and lots of new shoots and branches will come, and I can remake this tree. And just as a precaution, I will seal the cuts that I made. So that the tree doesn't lose too much moisture. And this, as we say, is the genesis of a new tree. So I've had to bite the bullet in this case. This tree was a bit neglected because I was never really happy with it, but finally I've got to grips with it. And while it was growing, we keep talking about seeds germinating. Let me just show you some of the seedlings that are coming up. I will just switch the camera again. I'm just homing in on the pot. Look at all these maple seedlings. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, certainly 4 seedlings, Japanese maple seedlings, which are sprouting from here. So, and you can see some of the seeds which have fallen from the trees under which it was standing, and these all germinate. So you don't have to take any great care. The seeds will just germinate like weeds, like the grass that is growing. I find that maple seedlings grow virtually everywhere. So this is this one. Now this is a sample of some of the Zelkova seedlings that we grow. Zelkova is very easy to grow from seed. As you can see, this tray are all Zelkova seedlings, and these are, I would say, 5 years old. I don't let them grow big. They're kept in these small pots, and every year I take the center out, like this tree. You can see I've already chopped the top and making it branch there. So they are kept small deliberately because we keep these for making into show hind trees. And the Zelkova, fortunately, has this habit of always forking at the middle. So when you see a broom tree with the fork, this is the natural habit how they grow. Can you see how it forks over there? So they tend to fork, and they will stay like this. And if you keep it trimmed, you can keep this as a very small bonsai. I haven't got a small pot to hand, but I will pot it up and show you how cute this will look just by putting it in a pot. So you don't have to grow them big. You can keep these small and they will make delightful little trees. These are all the same age, but some are larger than others. So this is how we grow them from small. And these are 5 years old, and these I would say are at least 15 or 20 years old. I tried to make a broom from this with the fork, but it's already getting a bit of inverse taper. So if you want to make a straight tree in formal upright, just let it grow tall, but don't let too many branches grow from one point. You see over here, this is causing inverse taper. So if you have too many branches growing from one point, it will cause this inverse taper. And if you have this inverse taper and you don't like it, the best thing to do is cut it back from there and let it sprout again. So if you want a perfect tree, you cut it here. I'm not going to cut it because someone may want to buy this and grow it as an informal upright tree. You can also try and shave some of that inverse taper off. That is another way of dealing with it, because nothing is ever lost. And as with bonsai, I find that experimenting with different techniques is part of the fun of doing bonsai. So if you just shave it, you can probably, correct the inverse taper. So this tree, how would I deal with this? This was a small broom, but it's become too big. I may just do this. And then do this. And hopefully the broom style, I know it's a rude sign, but this is the start of the broom tree. Many of these are going to be just informal upright style trees, nothing special about it. The thing I find about Zelkova is that they have these dominant shoots, and if you let a dominant shoot go mad or unchecked, it will take over the tree and it will spoil the tree. Also, as with most elms, if you have an ugly root, you can cut it off and make a root cutting from it. Root cuttings grow very easily, so you can make an informal upright tree. You don't always have to make the broom style. This is tending to be a weird broom. Look at those dominant shoots. And all this dieback, as I said, dieback is quite common with this species because there's so many twigs on the trees that the dieback is a natural occurrence. So what is this tree going to be like? It is a very natural shaped broom. And if you're not fussy, that's the crossing branch. Just keep on top of it and keep it as a nice small tree. You can make nice little landscapes with this, so no big deal. While we're talking about Zelkova and elm, this is a smooth bark, hardy Chinese elm. So you can see the difference in the leaf shape. Zelkova leaves are quite different from the Chinese elm leaves. I'm now just going to pot up one of those little ones and show you how we make a small shohin from that. Today is a very windy day, but I think I'll take some videos just to complete this video about Zelkovas. These large trees are the source of a lot of air layerings, and I'll just show you some large air layerings that I did. Now these trees are every bit 8 foot high, and they are all made from air layering, because if they were not air layered, they would have masses of roots. So you can see that we got very compact root. Even this one here, this one is also an air layering. I'll probably cut it back there and create the new leader from this side. So this is an air layering, just to show you how big it is. That's the wheelbarrow. And this is also an air layering. You can see how the roots have formed. When you air layer, you get lots of fine roots developing. So this will become another large broom style bonsai. And to get taper on Zelkova is difficult. This is a large tree that I've been playing around for years. It's like a twin trunk, and you see all the natural hollow. In fact, this is such a nice side. I may make this the front of the tree. The true front is really on the other side. So let's have a look at this side. And to get that taper has taken me years and years to create. I'm going to take it into the greenhouse to show you how I'm going to deal with this. This is an example of the Zelkova broom that I've been playing around for years and years. And as I mentioned to you earlier, the Zelkova broom is a very difficult tree to develop, because if you leave a lot of the branches growing from one point, you get what is called this inverse taper. So we'll have to deal with these lumpy bits. So we will probably have to cut it hard back over there in a V shape and then make the tree all over again, because that frankly is a fault. But if I just wanted to make a very casual looking tree without paying too much attention to the finer detail, I can just wire it out and make it look like a broom tree. So I will do that for you. So I'm just going to cut this inverse taper growth out so that I get more of a narrow top. Have to be quite careful how I cut. That's not too bad. I've got rid of some of that. I'll now just do a bit of wiring to the top. Cut these long shoots off. We don't need these. Zelkova sprouts so easily from the old wood that I'm not worried where I cut. So I will just open this out a little bit with some wire. I'm using recycled wire again, because I don't believe in wasting wire. This is wire just for guiding the branch in the right direction, so I'm not very fussed about how neatly I wire. As long as it does the job, that's all that matters. So there you are. This is certainly not the finished tree, because there's lots of growth to come, and once the growth comes, we will be able to create some form of broom style tree. So all is not lost with this one. Now let me show you another one that I've been developing over many years. Take it out of its pot. Now this particular tree has been grown over very many years, and you can see that I've got a beautiful, perfect taper simply by constantly taking out the leading shoot and letting it grow again. All these long shoots here are this year's growth, and as you will remember what I said, they produce shoots. Look at this long shoot. This long shoot is this year's growth. In the last 4 to 5 weeks, this is every bit 50 centimeter long, has been grown this year. So you don't have to worry about them producing new shoots. They will produce new shoots very, very readily. So however hard you cut back, you're bound to get some new shoots. Now this shoot is going inward, so I don't really want it. So let's get rid of it. Now this is how we create the taper. We keep pulling up a new leader, and then the taper is formed over a very long period of time. This tree is one of my very long-term projects. I have certain trees that I do not sell because they are experiments that I do. I spend a lot of my time doing experiments just to discover and to find out how trees behave when you do certain things. So this is part of the research, if you may call it that, onto bonsai that I grow. Many people are a bit frustrated when they come to the nursery, and I say to them that I'm not prepared to sell these trees because I'm researching these trees. So they are research projects, for want of a better word. So this is how the taper is going ahead, and all this will come off. I was showing you in the field the detail of this tree. I'll just switch the camera position. I've been developing the taper on this tree for the last 25 years. It must be as long as that. So the first cut was made over here, then another cut made there, and another cut made there. So progressively each year we add a little bit at a time to get the taper. So because the tree is leaning slightly towards this side, this has been always used as the front. And where I have cut branches off, I have not sealed them, so they form these natural hollows. In fact, I'm prodding this long iron bar in here, and I know that the tree is completely hollow right through. When I cut a branch, I don't often seal it, because if you don't seal it, the wood rots naturally and you get these lovely hollows. And in nature, you will find a lot of trees behave in this way. Old apple trees, even old oak trees, you can see it's completely hollow. I'm just trying to dig out all that mud, and this will become a very nice feature. In fact, there's an ant's nest in there. So I'm not worried about that. With the jet washer, I'll probably create more hollow. And this bit here, this is also completely hollow. And you can see the ants coming out of there. So this is so interesting that I'm almost inclined to make this the front. But then again, if you put it in a round drum pot, you can use any side as the front. So this is the tree that has been a long time in making. So that's as far as we've got. I try not to feed Zelkovas with too much fertilizer, because if you use very strong fertilizer, you get very coarse growth. So it's better to go easy on the fertilizer so that you get very refined growth, which are not so vigorous. So I've cut back quite hard and encouraged new shoots to grow. I've deliberately kept this trunk bare because I want to emphasize the feature of that trunk, and it will just be with the top, the crown there, and another crown on that little twin trunk. So this is a very favorite Zelkova of mine. I will show you one more example. The Zelkova Serrata is very popular not just as broom style trees, they're also used quite a lot for making Zelkova forests. This is a forest that I made with different sizes of Zelkova cuttings. Again, this has been made over a long period of time, and in fact I did use this at one of the Chelsea flower shows, so it goes back a very long way. So even these short trees, they are quite old. So there are different sized trees here, and I tried to keep it trimmed back. There are lots of faults if you look at it carefully. If you look at this central dominant tree, or the principal tree, I've let this branch grow up here, and that, anyone will tell you, is a fault. I deliberately let it grow because I couldn't get branches to sprout from here, so I let this branch grow, and this fills that space. So when you look at the totality of that tree is complete, because without that branch, odd branch on the left, it looks too bare. So this tree has a mixture of thick and thin trees. I haven't even bothered to count how many trees there are. I will count it just to prove a point. I've got 3, 2, 5, 6, 6 and 4, 10, 10 and 2, 12. Now, for those who believe that all groups should have odd number of trees, I've always reckoned that once you get over the number 7, the eye cannot assimilate and tell the difference between odd and even numbers. So although this group has got 12 trees, is it defective? I wouldn't say so. So don't be obsessed with numbers. This is a very nice Zelkova group. This is the front, but if you want to, let's see what it would look like from this side. You could possibly use it from this side, but I think it was designed with the other side as the front, because the small trees at the back are meant to give the illusion of trees growing in the distance to create perspective. So this is an example of how you can use Zelkova Serrata for creating a different style. I'm now going to show you what we do with these little seedlings. We produce these by the hundreds, and all you need to do is put it in one of these little, this is only a plastic Japanese bonsai training pot, and even in these little pots they look nice. But what I'm going to do is do something better than that. And when I say better than that, this is a lovely tree, so it deserves better, and the roots are very fine. Fortunately, it hasn't produced any large strong roots. Now, how do we choose the pot? I brought several pots to show you what would be the right pot. Now, if I put it in this pot, that pot is far too big, so that rules it out. How about this pot? By the way, these are all very high quality Japanese pots. Can you see? These are in fact tokoname pots. When I used to go to Japan and visit tokoname, I had great pleasure in self-selecting these pots. I used to go through the stock of pots and buy them personally. So let's try some of these tokoname pots. On our nursery, where we have thousands and thousands of pots, although you have thousands of pots, sometimes you may not even find the right pot for the tree. So that could be possible, although that is still a bit too large for this tree. Now this is a Chinese crackle glazed pot. Let me try this. Look at the roots. There's such a lot of fine roots. Look at that. such a little tree and it's massive little roots. Now because I have the facilities in here for taking care of the trees in this enclosed greenhouse, I can do a little bit of repotting. I know the tree will not suffer. So that is probably getting to about the right size. So this is okay. This is a lovely crackled blaze pot. And this tokoname pot is also about the right size. So this will also do. And this very shallow pot, you could also pot it in this. In fact, the broom style trees are usually potted in these very shallow oval pots, so you could do it like that. I know I'm not doing the final potting. All you have to do is fill soil and smooth it out. So this is a possibility, but what I want to show you is to become a little more adventurous. So let us take a selection of trees. Remember that bonsai is all about creativity. The more you create, the more fun you will get out of bonsai. So not just growing trees horticulturally, we're trying to create something beautiful. So let us try and make a little landscape. So you can create a landscape or a forest planting with these trees, or even a small forest group. See, that would look nice. Or if you use one of these Japanese special primitive type pots, you can do that as well. And that with a little bit of rock would look very nice. So I hope this gives you some idea as to the versatile nature of Zelkova Serrata. So although I have not talked about Zelkova in all this time, it is a rather sophisticated species and they do make very nice bonsai. So I hope that you will experiment with it. Zelkova seeds are sold by a lot of seed companies and they're very, very easy to germinate. In fact, when I came to the nursery in 1986, I sowed must be thousands and thousands of seedlings, and I used to sell these little plants for £1 or say $1 a time, and I managed to survive just doing that. While I'm talking about sowing seeds, look at this maple seedling there. They tend to grow like weeds everywhere. That's cute. I could make that into a little mame tree. So there you go. Bonsai is about enjoyment, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Look at the roots coming out of this. This is all very strong stuff. And with that, I will end this video. And as usual, I hope I've given you something to think about and something to learn from the experience I've had with Zelkovas. So enjoy your day. Thank you.